Go.
No Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Renegae Rundown. I've got my guy Deshawn Adams at Deshawn Adams 18. You can find him on X with me as always, and returning to her seat of crime there at her international headquarters of business, Jen Santi, aka at Jen Santi 1890. You can find her on X. We missed her for about a week. As we all let you guys know, she had a family issue with her mom taking a bit of a spill, but she is tough as hell and is doing better. Jen got to celebrate one of her baby's birthdays the other day, so she's made it back. Welcome back, Jen. How are we doing before we get into tonight's agenda? And I promise you, we're going to have a really fun conversation tonight. And you folks out there that join in as we let the folks kind of roll in here, really going to like what you hear. But how's it going, Jen?
Doing good. And I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you men holding it down for me while I wasn't able to be on. But yeah, doing very well. And thank you everybody for the support and all the messages. I appreciate it very much.
We tried as hard as we could to hold down the fort, of course, but to also gather up the love and the prayers and everything and send it your way. So glad it worked out. I'm glad we can get on here and just have fun and talk some football again. And you get to people can guess what's in your Huggy again.
Dang.
So
I do have a special Huggy though today, and it's my Buck Snort Tennessee Huggy.
There you go.
Like, isn't that the most amazing name of a town you've ever heard?
Buck Snort.
Boy,
that is like hillbilly paradise right there. They can put all their favorite activities together, and I'm kind of a hillbilly, so I can do that. It's all right. I can make fun. But
pretty sure the only thing there is a porn store, though. But I did stop at the gas station and buy a Buck Snort Huggy. I had to. And a T-shirt. I own a T-shirt.
Stop lying, Jen. Stop lying. You stopped at that store.
It was closed, or I certainly would have. I needed to know who worked at the Buck Snort store right there. Like, don't you need to know what kind of lives they lead? I do. Although, if you've ever watched Criminal Minds, I'm pretty sure that you know what type of life they lead.
I heard that. Yeah, you never know what you're going to find in old Buck Snort. But again, on the agenda for today, we're going to talk about fall camp. We just had our 6th practice in the books this morning. For those that don't really know how this thing goes, I believe we have about 24 practices leading up to the kickoff on August 24th, which doesn't leave much time off. They get 1 or 2 days off a week between now and kickoff. We've got 6 in the bank. Today was the first practice, fully padded. Not a super ton of information that's going to come out of just today, but with the kind of information we've got through all 6 different practices, talking to different people, watching all the different highlights that are available, there's one thing, kind of a theme that has become clear coming out of camp there at Florida State, and that this team is, we've already heard, the strongest FSU team Mike Norvell's ever had. We've heard the fastest. The big issue, the big talk is, oh, well, they don't bring any experience, they don't have the skill, yada, yada. We were kind of qualifying things to a certain degree. Starting out, we did a lot of comparing this team to 2022, being similar in the experience department, but having much, much more talent. We're ready to cross a different bridge. Our friend Chris Frazier at Spear Addicts did a show, talking about this being even better than the 2023 team after he got to see some practice. James has got to be to a couple of different practices. We had him on our most recent episode. If you haven't caught that one, go catch that one. That was after practice number 4, I believe. Guys, yeah, there's no need for qualifiers anymore. This Florida State team is hands down, without a doubt in my mind, when you look at it, one of the 10 best teams in the country, and they're going to have a chance to compete for a college football playoff. Book your tickets for Charlotte. I think they're getting back there. Nothing is 100%. There's a chance a ball could bounce the wrong way, and you end up with 1 loss, and you got a Virginia Tech team who, for whatever reason, didn't catch anybody, so could end up 8-0 in the ACC and get in there. But I think if something crazy like that did happen and you were 11-1 or 10-2, I think Florida State actually gets in the college football playoff in this new format. As much as I've kind of been on the opposite side of that and saying, no, nothing's going to change. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, the winner gets 1, but I'm kind of leaning the other way. When the Vegas odds and the different power ratings, even like ESPN's FPI and things of that nature, FSU is way up there on their odds of getting in the playoffs. And when you look at breaking it down to the teams that have a chance without winning their conference, FSU is in that very top group. So yeah, just a really good chance of making the playoffs and everything you need in the team. Everything starts up front. We've talked about that, and that's FSU's biggest advantage is their offensive line. If you want to compare back to 2022, you can look at the offensive line and see a giant difference. Back then, you had a Bless Harris walk in and immediately be named the starter. He gets hurt against Duquesne, never really becomes an issue on that team. You end up having Jazz and Turn team, taking out and switching snaps with a Darius Washington, who at that point was really just kind of a swing guy. He was your sixth guy, but was forced to step in and play those super serious reps at right tackle. It ended up being a blessing in disguise. You had Maurice Smith at center, who's still here 2 years later and just the healthiest he's been, what seems like his entire career, an absolute beast. You brought in such other, between Ferguson and Leonard. I mean, it just goes on and on. Back then, you had guys like Gibbons, who, God bless him, he was a great part of this line. But the athletes we've got on that line now are just a different level. He would not be starting on this line. The only people that would be starting off that line are Maurice Smith and Darius Washington, just because they're here and they've got two more years and they're much better. But DJU is kind of the barometer of how far this team can go. Jen was in on DJU from the start. The question, it pretty much was DJU or Cam Ward. That was the question. Mike Norvell settled on DJU. We all know the rest of the story. Cam commits for the NFL, then comes back to Miami. But there's been a whole lot of talk around DJU and could he take this team all the way? From everything I've heard, he had his best practice of all the entire camp today. And everything that from what I've seen and heard, I think he's plenty damn good enough. I think he's really starting to earn a rapport with those guys, Malik Benson, the tight end room, Kyle Morlock, really taking another step. But before I talk all night, we can let Jen open up. She's been out. I don't know how much stuff you've got to look at as far as practice and stuff, but I'm sure you have some thoughts, especially about your guy, DJU thus far.
Well, obviously, I can't wait to see him play. I am very excited, but not surprised by his practice reports at all. And I think everybody who watches this show, you cannot say, I even had a Miami fan say, "Oh, you wanted Cam Ward." And I was like, look, I had no problem with Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's very good. But no, let's roll the tapes. DJU is my guy from the get. That's who I wanted from the get. I always wanted the guy who wanted to be there the most. And for me as a quarterback, going to play for a guy like Mike, I think that is very important. Mike can be very intense with his quarterbacks. We know that. It is not, you don't want the guy who has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You just don't. So I am so excited. What I'm more excited about, though, is the wide receivers are stepping up a bit. I like this a lot. There were so many, I guess chicken littles, running around. This guy is falling. And yet these wide receivers look really good. They look great. And I'm sorry, but Malik Benson's going to be really good. So that's all I'm going to say. Yeah. I'll let you guys go.
Beautiful. Marcus Lee comes through with a $5 super chat.
Yes.
This team will have at least 30 players in the 2 deep that are redshirt juniors or seniors. Most of them are blue chips. When your core age is 22 and 23, it is great. And I'll get into the composition and breakdown of the team and look at some really cool points here when we move forward. But go ahead, Deshawn. I know you got some thoughts on DJU and kind of that offensive line unit as we start here, as we go through the team.
Yeah, I will add, I'll start by the offensive line. I think the rotational depth is the key there. You mentioned Washington and Smith, but you added in that you may have a situation where Keandre Jones is a rotational player. Robert Scott may be a rotational player, and that's a nice problem to have, especially, his injury history. But now he's not forced into a role playing a role where he has to be the lead dog, and you know his health, the line depends on his health. Now he can really just take his time and continue to develop, get those reps and things that he's missed in practice and in the off season, getting healthy. And to touch on DJ, I know I saw Mike's interview today. The ceiling is high. He has a lot to prove, and it seems like that's where over his career, Mike has really excelled with his quarterback development, either here, Memphis, or at Arizona State. It's always been a quarterback that he's had that's had something to prove. JT has something to prove. DJ has something to prove. Brady White has something to prove. I can't remember the other quarterback before Brady, and then it was another one at Arizona State. But it just seems to be he likes to take the guys with a chip or an edge, and those are guys you can win with. So I wouldn't be surprised to see DJ hit that 3,000 mark this year. It just seems like it's setting up that way.
Without a doubt, I agree 100%. X's and Knowles did a good breakdown of kind of DJU's tendencies, which routes he likes to throw, which routes he threw at Clemson, which routes he threw at Oregon State this past year. And go routes is like way, 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 way up on his charts. One of his best routes. And it's something that he did very little at Oregon State last year. A lot of people talk about, oh, well, he had Jonathan Smith in that system and they ran the ball so good. So, that's why they did so well. Another thing that I found on that X and O's video, no, same exact percent of run to passes that he had at Clemson in 2022 as he had at Oregon State in 2023. And, as much as people want to cry and worry about the wide receivers, as Jen called them chicken littles, the receivers that he had out there at Oregon State, he had some pretty good ones, but they were little guys. They were like Megamind and Jalen Lucas. And in my opinion, they may have got the stats and been in a better situation last year, but they're no better than what we got. Just wait. Wait till you see what Jalen Lucas, Ja'Kai Douglas, all these different guys, Lawrence Toafili coming out of the backfield. There is an embarrassment of riches, and we'll get to the running backs, I swear. But DJU, and you mentioned it, when you go back and you look at every single year that Mike Norvell had a starting quarterback going into the year that was planned to be the starter, there wasn't some competition like the first 2 COVID years here, or they didn't know what the hell they were doing. Just didn't have the guy. Travis's confidence wasn't there. You bring in Mackenzie Milton, we won't get into it. But every year, the 3-4 years at Memphis, the last year at ASU as the offensive coordinator, all great stats, all 3,000 plus yards, the close to 30 touchdowns, low interception numbers. That's what it's been every single year. We saw it out of Jordan Travis last year, or out of 2022, and last year came up a little bit short on the stats just because of the injury, but still his best year yet up to that point. DJU doesn't need some colossal thing. We've talked a lot about his 3-to-1 touchdown ratio. That could stay the same, or it could go up to 3.5 or 4, and we'd be ecstatic. That would be plenty. We don't need him to be perfect. We just need him to be pretty damn good. And with his arm, his ability to stretch the field, and what I've seen on these timing throws out of the backfield to the backs and things, the kind of rhythm he already has ready, like he's on the right hash and throwing it out to the complete other sideline. Like for people who don't know, like a football field, I believe is 53 yards wide. So he's making a 40-yard throw at the flick of wrist like it's nothing. These are throws that were a little tougher for Jordan Travis. These are throws, especially in Mike Norvell's offense, where if you can get the ball out to the field side in the snap of a finger, maybe some of those, wide receiver screens work where you just have a one-man advantage. And you don't see as many of those just get completely blown up because by the time the ball gets there, the action's over with. So there's all kind of different ways to look at it. And also just the fact of the type of offense we ran last year, though it was awesome. And we're seeing what Keon Coleman is doing right now for the Buffalo Bills, which is another thing I want to touch on later. The go balls, which are DJU's strength, are the strength of the wide receivers that we have. That's what our guy that we got from Alabama is a beast at. Malik Minson, like, is his go balls. He's got freak top speed and ability to just get off the line and get going. Much more like Ontario Wilson. And you bring in guys like LaWayne McCoy, Elijah Moore, who get a ton of snaps, intentional snaps as freshmen. From what I hear, they're getting extra chances and things like where normally maybe you shuffle them off to the freshman only camp practice. or, whatever they get to the back of the line. No, they're really putting these guys out there in meaty parts of practice. So, BJ Gibson, the track speed, all the different things. If you're a true freshman, you don't have to know this whole crazy route tree and all that stuff to get on the field and run a go route. Now, if you did that too many times, it becomes an issue because the team knows as soon as that guy comes on the field, he's running a go route. But we could talk about DJU all day long, but natural segue would be to the skill guys. We could talk about running backs and wide receivers. I guess, Jen, you can start off there. I know you're a fan of like Cam Davis and some of the younger running backs especially, but have you seen or heard anything that's really got you pumped up about the running back room thus far?
Well, I mean, obviously Rodell Williams. I don't think that's something that we should overlook at all. I think that kid is going to be so good and surprisingly good. I don't think that most people realize like how good he's going to be for Florida State. And it's giving like people being upset about Trey Benson tape, remember, and how good he was. That's what it's giving me. And I think he's being way overlooked right now. And so again, but with Toafili too, Toafili coming back, that kid is so good. I love his ability to take passes, out of the backfield, whatever you want to call him. I know I'm a female. I'm just going to say what I'm saying. But that is like where he shines, right? His ability to do that. And I don't know. I am really excited to watch these running backs this year. I really am. And I think, does anybody else see that they'll use like a Jalen Lucas in those situations as well? Because I 100% do. And it's gonna be super fun to just watch because it seems like they have a back for every offense or defense they're going to play, right? They have a different back for every single one that they're going to play, and they can actually put them out there, bring up a game plan. It's going to be so fun to watch because it's almost like Mike has this team he gets to put together for every game day. And this is going to be fun. And, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. I'll say this with the backs. I've said it before. Never question Mike Norvell with running backs. I mean, at the peak of his offensive system, he can produce 2 1,000-yard rushers. So to speak on the room as a whole, I think this is his best room in entirety since he's been at FSU, and it could be ended up being one of his best rooms in his career. The versatility, like you spoke to, Jen. I mean, Toafili. The thing about Mike's offense is you can always identify he identifies particular type of backs. He's always going to have that scat guy, that multi-purpose, and he's always going to have a downhill runner. That's Roydell, and the biggest surprise will be Roydell's. From what I've heard, James had mentioned his speed. We're coming in thinking he's going to be much more of a ground and pound guy, but he does have some breakaway speed. And then the X factor is actually Jalen Lucas. Being in that and being able to be a gadget guy also used out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. Toafili is beefed up a little bit more also to be able to take some of the carries inside and not just be a flex kind of back. So it's going to be real interesting with that room to see how he uses everyone. But I'm sitting here looking at past stats for his career at Memphis and Arizona State, and he's always produced at a minimum an 800-yard rusher at the minimum.
Facts on top of facts. I really loved everything you guys said. So let's just kind of look back at his history at Florida State versus what he's got now when you look at that running back room. A lot of people see what Trey Benson became, see what Treshaun Ward eventually became. They look at what Lawrence Toafili is now, and they look, well, we had those guys last year and the year before. We had them in 22. Okay, let's look at back what we really had in 2022 versus what we know that this coaching staff did developing that talent, sending that talent elsewhere, off to the NFL, bringing it back. Treshaun Ward was a preferred walk-on. I don't know if in 2022 he already had his scholarship, but he started out at Florida State as a preferred walk-on in a time when we were really having trouble with recruiting, and it was a great pickup, a great evaluation, and he worked his way into a starting position. The other guy was Trey Benson, who in 2022, I hope he doesn't see this, and I don't mean this, I never thought this, but it is, the narrative was he was, rotten goods. He had an injury in high school, whatever, gets to Oregon, gets to healed up. They have all these high hopes, another injury. Cristobal didn't want him at Miami. People talked all kind of shit, made jokes, rightfully so, after the whole Mackenzie Milton debacle that we talked about. You know, you can't find a running back with 2 legs. Okay, ends up being this high draft pick, a beast. He's going to be a star in the NFL for years to come, really find his niche as a one-cut runner. Trayshawn Moore did what he did. I wish he would have stayed, but you felt like you lost him. You missed him a bit last year. It's one of the few losses you had. We still had 2 top running backs, but really it was those 2 in a pretty big gulf to Keziah Holmes, who is still working his way back into it. And then, of course, you had a true sophomore, Lawrence Toafili, and then a junior this past year. Looking at this year, what we have, bringing in Roydell Williams, and I'm going to get to him in a minute and really brag on what I've seen on him. You have Lawrence Toafili, of course, still. You have Roydell that I just mentioned. You bring in a Jalen Lucas, who's just an absolute freak. And then you talk about the freshman you brought in. Legitimate stud. I'm talking about blue chip freaks that were not on the roster in 23 or 22 or any time before that. And even guys that Norvell never had at Memphis. He never had these type of Micah Hydanzis at Memphis. He turned guys into that. He took 3 stars and things of that nature. But he didn't have a Cam Davis come in off the street at Memphis. And I won't say anything in particular. I won't say who it was or anything. But the things I'm hearing about Cam Davis coming out of camp, in the parts that you don't see, and just kind of as far as his ranking amongst the alphas in that locker room, just wait. Cam Davis is one of the guys we talked about earlier in the year, possibly being impact player. But he's going to be that guy. Cam Davis is an absolute beast. He might be the best running back we brought in out of high school, and I don't know. We have to look back. I'm not going to say maybe since Cam Akers, something like that. He is a freak. And that's a pretty good look. I wouldn't say a comparison. More of a comparison would be his doppelganger. I can't think of his name right now. What's the guy's name? The guy he went to Miami. Frank Gore. That's
Frank Gore.
Frank
Gore. That's
really
a good count.
Explains his abilities, especially a young Frank Gore with the more getting side to side, with also just being huge. It doesn't make sense how he moves around. So it's really beautiful. The running backs behind that offensive line that we talked about last year, everything that we've seen coming out of practice is going to be beautiful. And again, Micah Hydanzi, you can slide him out wide and send him on a go route too, with that track speed. As we move into wide receivers, again, it's a spot that people worry about, but I mentioned it earlier. You keep hearing things about Dwayne McCoy and Elijah Moore. I keep wanting to switch their 2 last names, but I mentioned how they're not getting treated with the same true freshman thing of Dwayne McCoy is doing pretty good, so he's getting reps. He's getting second team reps. He got a first team rep. Oh, he made a drop. And then he was lined up in the wrong spot. Okay, back to the bottom of the list, and you got to climb your way back up. That isn't what's going on. No, made a mistake, do it again. Do it again. Get it right, and let's go. You're going to be a part of this game plan. So that's a beautiful thing to see. Hakeem Williams is a guy that, whatever, maybe we were wrong, but I'm all in on the fact that he's going to, reach a starting level for Florida State this year. Malik Benson, we already talked about him earlier. We won't go on and on and on, but he definitely has looked like wide receiver 1 thus far. So if you compare that with Williams, who do y'all think that has a chance to battle with Williams for that second wide receiver spot before we get into the slot? I'll let Jen go.
The second wide receiver spot. Oh wow.
After Malik Benson and Hakeem Williams, who do you think the next wide receiver to have a chance to step up and really be a playmaker this year?
Oh no. God.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We can go.
I think I would go with a Jalen Lucas type, even though I think he's going to be used a lot in the running back, position as well. But I think for me, I could see him being I don't know. That's what comes off my head. Or Deuce Spann, maybe.
Yeah, Deuce Spann could. I don't know what the deal is with Deuce. I had really high hopes He came in kind of thinking with his athleticism and his length and things, he'd be able to reel it in and really just be a super threat. Hasn't came quite to fruition, but I could definitely see Deuce stepping up. But how about you, Deshawn, outside of the freshman, or you can even talk about the freshman? Just who do you think maybe will be that third option? Is it a Kentron Portier, one of these older guys, or is it
Yeah.
maybe a sophomore, somebody, one of that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Portier as a possibility for what they're gonna ask him to do. Because if you're looking at the receiver position with Benson and Hakeem, the only other receiver that's going to have those measurables that they're looking for on that outside receiver will be Portier. So that's one guy. And then going back just to touch one little second on the running backs, a name we didn't mention was Keziah Holmes. That's
Mhm.
another that's embarrassment of riches there. But getting back to the wide receiver room, yeah, it's definitely Portier outside of Williamson, especially with Destin in question with the injury situation. He would have been the easy pick right there for that third guy. But out with the outside guys, because he can play the outside, he's not preferably have to play the slot position. So yeah, I would stick with Portier as my guy in that rotation on the outside.
Definitely shouts out to Keziah, and he definitely looks the best he has. He has looked
Yeah.
the absolute best he has since he's got to Florida State. Um, the only thing that I would think would hurt his carries is somebody like Cam Davis.
Hmm.
That just, and even Sam Singleton, that's another one we didn't mention. Sam
Hmm.
Singleton has looked really good in this camp. He looks kind of like Toafili, a little bit heftier, a little bit bigger, maybe,
Hmm.
but a lot of the same abilities as him, which I kind of had mixed up. I really, when I saw him, he's kind of transformed his body quite a bit since high school, lost a little bit of the baby fat. Looks really, really good out there. So, yeah, that's
Hmm.
another one. Jalen Lucas, who, yeah, does line up at running back, but will be doing a lot of passing routes and things. When you see him on the field, he is a different kind of guy.
Hmm.
People talk Darren Sproles and things of that nature, and it's always
Hmm.
hyperbole when you talk about a guy who might be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. But on the college level, that's the kind of skill set he has. The dude
Yeah.
is like lightning. Anytime you watch any of those one-on-one drills, I have not seen him get caught yet. I've seen him kind of get half wrapped up, one of those deals where they just kind of half-heartedly walk out of bounds. But most of the time, he's completely leaving his guy, and that's like Earl Little and guys like that. He's not matched up
Hmm.
against the walk-ons, and that's the same thing with Keziah since you brought him up. Keziah and Singleton, they both really look great. You can see the development come year over year. But at wide receiver, Darian Williamson is a guy that you would like to think maybe could be that guy to step
Hmm.
up, but we've just yet to see the consistency
Yeah.
from him. So we'll see what happens between Darian Williamson and Kentron Portier, though. There is a level of experience, a level of age there that will help, maybe, if anything, help these young guys, LaWayne McCoy, Elijah Moore, kind of figure out how goes it out there on
Hmm.
the football field, if you will, at wide receiver. But it'll be a lot of fun. I think we're going to be just fine. It's just the focus of the offense is going to be this running game.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those things where, like, oh shit, how are we possibly going to stop the running game? And next thing you know,
Hmm.
Malik Vincent is overhead. In past years, we really had to leverage Jordan Travis's legs to open up lines, open up holes, and then on top of that, deep balls and things like that to even open up the running game for Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili and things of that nature. This year, just it's going to be a little bit different. And again, go
Hmm.
back to those 2019 Memphis tapes, and just imagine DJU as the quarterback, because it's going to be a lot more like that. And this is just far and away, the most talent that Mike Norvell has ever had in his career. And
Hmm.
should this team reach its ceiling, it legitimately will be better than it was last year. And that's
Hmm.
legitimately. I think I've touched on most of the stuff. Um, it's Deshawn, Jen, if there's any kind of things that you've heard about the offensive side of the ball out of camp, or anything you wanted to touch on before we move on to
Yeah.
the rumors out of the defense, now would be a good time.
Yeah, I'll touch on one thing. It's going to be interesting to see when we play Georgia Tech. We all know that everyone cares in to stop the GTNY counter, but off tackle. But it's going to be interesting to see them run duo. If we can run duo, it really expands the running game to another level, and also the short yardage, which I mentioned in the previous show. So those are going to be some
You
things
think
that
you
I'm
can break
intrigued.
that down for the people to and like a kindergartner to kind of
Yeah,
understand? Because like
Which
GT counter, I think we've broke that down enough on
yeah,
this show. When we
Guard,
talk about
tackle, pull.
counter, we're talking
That
about a couple
yeah,
offensive linemen pulling.
yeah.
Okay, and it doesn't mean you've got a counter. It doesn't mean the running back has to cross face like he's going this way and then go with the pullers. It just means they're pulling. It could be a traditional counter, or it could run a
Yes.
sweep. He could throw off of it. There's
Uh-huh.
all kinds of things they could do. So what's the difference when you talk about duo?
Duo is more you get more your double team downhill blocking. It's basically just your straight ahead muscle. It's not a lot of it's no pulling in that, but you do. The greatest reference I can give for our viewers is the run Trey Benson had up the middle against Florida for the touchdown. When he's made himself skinny and scooted out for the touchdown, that play was duo. That was a duo block for the lineman.
And I wanted you to do that because duo lends itself a lot more to our guy Roydell Williams than Trey Benson, does it not?
Yes.
Looking forward, do you think we'll see that a lot more this year, I guess, than more in previous years?
We could,
Yes.
especially if our interior of our line can move and be able to show that downhill power and not
Ricky
just
Leonard,
the
man.
quick agile. Yeah, with Richie Leonard, Ferguson, and even Keandre, that gives us some beef up front on the inside to be able to execute that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
One more look out of that. And imagine you're sitting there and you're getting ready for this counter and you've already seen it 8 times. They ran it to the left, they ran it to the right, they've thrown it, they've did this, they've done that, and now your center and your guards getting double teamed, and it's like, oh shit, and everybody's running into each other. So yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Can't wait for that to get here. And sorry, Jen, I know you were kind of tackling there too.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think that the duo is Mike Norvell's specialty. If we want to be for real about this, I think that's actually what he does is run that duo very, very, very well. And I think having the Roydell Williams, the Toafili's, the whoever you want to go off of with this is gonna be so fun. And I think this is gonna be perfect for Georgia Tech. And I think that you're gonna see a lot of it playing Georgia Tech. And I just thank God that we don't have to go to that shitty field and have all of our players' ankles messed up because y'all can't keep sod on the field. Thank you. Shout out to Paul Johnson. Okay.
Well, as much as I would like to think that, we're gonna see. Our Aer Lingus people haven't done anything to us, but usually when you see these things, it's like they're like playing football in our backyard. I don't know if it's something with how they set up for different cleats or just like the level of athletes and like the weights of soccer players and stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. I've got my high hopes. This seems like it's one of the best ones ever put together. So just don't want to. I don't want people to be like, Jen told us that we were gonna have a good field. What the fuck?
Well, I mean, I can't account for the field in Ireland, guys, and that cannot be that blame cannot be put on me. But what I will say is that we don't have to play at the shitty Georgia Tech field. So there you go with their bumblebee mascot roaming around, which is extremely embarrassing, almost as bad as the duck. Okay.
All righty. Well, let's move on to defense a little bit before we get into the Big 10 kind of stuff and the tea leaves that have fallen here the past couple days. We've talked all a ton about this stuff. I don't know how much new has came out since the last time we talked about the defense, but it all starts up front. That's kind of been the theme of this thing. After last year and how good Braden Fisk was at the end of the year, how good Jared Verse was, just kind of how good that defensive line and that front seven all was together. People have a hard time. It's just there's going to be a big drop off. It's going to be bad. We're right back to 2022. And again, that theme of comparing to the 2022 team it's my fault. It's whoever's fault talks about it. It's just an easy thing to look when you look at experience. But again, when you go back and look at that roster back in 2022, when we got hampered, when we lost a couple defensive tackles, and all of a sudden we were just not stopping the run in the second half. We were not able to stop it consistently. We could go up in the red zone sometimes, but it just, when you go down there and you can't stop the run, it really hurts the death of 1,000 cuts, especially those 2 games that you lost by 2 and 3 points, okay? People also forget about that. Along with the defensive line depth, we had no field goal kicker. So we couldn't kick field goals. It was touchdowns or nothing. And when you get to the red zone, it's really, really hard. It's really tough when you don't have that. So Yeah, it was really tough in that 2022 year. But when you kind of look at the roster and who the guys were back there compared to what they are now, it's just nowhere even close. When you look at like when you played Florida last year, you had Derek McClendon, which I wish the world of him. I think he does. I hope he does great, makes it to the NFL and all that. But it's a different level that's expected at Florida State than the level he was at 2022 and even last year. As we all know, he left and went to Colorado. The next defensive tackle position was Fabian Lovett or Dennis Briggs Jr. We all know Lovett getting hurt, that was in. So as soon as Lovett gets hurt, you're stuck. You've got Dennis Briggs Jr. coming up. And, Dennis Briggs Jr. got a lot better. But again, just the standard of defensive tackle at Florida State now and what it's been raised to now, no, it'll never happen again. There won't be that level of defensive tackle unless we lose 3 or 4. Robert Cooper was the other tackle starting. Love Robert Cooper to death. He started the race. He's one of these guys who came in. I want to say he was a Taggart recruit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe he was a Jimbo Taggart recruit, kind of mixed.
Yeah. So it is what it is. You will never have another Robert Cooper starting at defensive tackle, and that's level. And you were one snap away from. I'm not even going to talk what was behind him. I don't even know if we still had Jarrett Jackson at that point. But it was just a completely different world. Florida State was left with any the defensive lineman, not a Virginia, maybe a Louisville has year in, year out the kind of talent they're working with, not even, and that's just not it. We had Jared Verse, of course that was a different deal. He was pretty damn good. He wasn't quite Jermaine Johnson in 2022 or in 21, but in 22, Jared Verse, he's pretty much what carried that thing. So yeah, we lost him. But guys, he was one guy that we had in 2022 to carry the whole thing. In 2024, it's going to be a different deal. You've got Patrick Payton, who is a junior, or not a junior, who is a senior, who is a first-round draft pick. We can talk about how great he's been. There's not a lot of need for him to get a ton of snaps and get hurt. He's out there to be a leader, help these other guys dominate a little bit, get out of the way. When you move inside, Joshua Farmer is another guy who was a youngin' back in those days in 2022, but has ascended to be an absolute beast. He's a top, first 3 days of the draft, he's getting his name called. Next to him is Daryl Jackson, the same thing. A guy you wish you had in 2022. A guy in 2022 that was playing for Miami who would have been the best D tackle you had by a mile. You wish you could have had him. If you just could have just snatched D tackle, if you could have got him from Maryland instead of Miami in 2022, who knows? Maybe you win 12 games. Maybe you have just a Cinderella year. You don't know, because it would have been that big a difference. That, or if we could just find out whoever told Ryan Fitzgerald to go to 2 steps and wring his neck. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We love you, Ryan Fitzgerald, and we're glad you're a beast. But that's just yet another thing, is kickers. We went from having, a very young punter and a kicker who just completely had the yips to having 2 guys who are on all the award watch lists. The other side, defensive end, Marvin Jones Jr., that's the question. That's the Jared Verse in 22. Can he come in and be that game changer? But what the difference is, we don't need him to like we needed Jared Verse to back in the days. We do if we want to just, have the best defensive line in the country. But just what we know he is coming out of Georgia is going to be damn good enough for us. But we do think there's another level of potential. And then when you go behind them, a guy like KJ Sampson, who's just raved reviews from what I hear coming out of camp, he's just another level of offense of athleticism over what you have in Farmer and Jackson, just really starting to pour out as a young guy. Who knows where he'll be when it's all said and done, but he's going to be really good this year. Grady Kelly's still getting it integrated in, but I trust the staff. He'll be serviceable. He probably could have started on that 22 D line. And then there's another one, Daniel Lyons, another guy with a ton of potential who gets better and better, and everything went for him from camp. He's getting better. Jen or Deshawn, whoever wants to go first, take it from me. What are y'all thinking on defensive line, and are y'all hearing anything so far?
You got it, Jen, or you want me to take it?
Well, what I can say is I am so excited. I cannot wait to see AZ. Number one, I can't wait to see AZ. I wish the quarterback play in the league was going to be better so he could show up his skills a little bit more. But for me, AZ and Conrad Hussey are two that I am super excited to see. Also, are a little, and obviously Marvin Jones Jr. Let's be for real there. I don't know. There are so many. I mean, I cannot wait to see how Farmer and Peyton play this year because I think those guys are the real freaking deal. I think this defense is going to be so much better than what anybody thinks they're going to be. I think they're so locked in. I think the coaching staff has this, they know what they want to do. And the way that defense played last year, I get that we lost players. I 100% do. But like, those are still like, they've learned the same things and we got better and we got better. Like, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for it to be a good defense again. I can't wait for the first play to just be that defense just sticks it to them and like, let's set the tone. Just like Florida State did in 2013 against Pitt. That first play they had, Florida State, that defense just told Pitt, sit the fuck down. I've got this, you know?
Facts. Tell him. Al Woody reminds me, that's the name that I was trying to remember earlier. We'll call him Tommy. Tommy Durajaye is at D tackle. The Knowles are 6 deep. So yeah, Durajaye has been getting a ton of snaps inside. He's the one of those two. And there's also Sione Lolohea that I didn't even mention. You've got Boots, but I'm sure you've got plenty. What have you heard? What's the whispers that you've heard? And just kind of from the highlights, what's got you excited about the D-line room?
With the D line is you already mentioned some names I was going to mention, but when you look, you good, but you throw in Byron Turner.
Yeah.
Also as a rotational piece who was a depth piece last year. He's still in rotation. Aaron Hester looked really good, decent at the spring showcase. You also got Boots, like we said. It's going to be interesting to see his development continue. A telltale sign of that is also Amari Williams. They moved him over to tight end. I know that they wanted to develop a defensive end, so that's telling me that there's some of the young bucks that's in that room must be stepping up because we can afford this luxury. Who we might mostly redshirt, but now we're moving him over to tight end. So I'm looking at those names like Turner, Hester, that the floor, what you mentioned in 22. This team is comparable to that 22 team, but I think the floor where we were when we couldn't afford certain injuries, I think we're a lot better than we were on that front line with the overall depth. Now we won't have the top talent that we had like a Verse, or even we didn't think we were going to have got the production that we got from Verse when Jermaine left. But now you had Verse last year and you had Fisk. But I think the overall team totality with Farmer, Jackson, and Peyton, and then you rotate MJJ, you have, like you said, Tamawa Durajaye, Sone Lilahea, those names, Grady Kelly. You just keep mixing them in, and then, like you said, Tamawa can play outside in on the strong side, setting the edge, or you can slide him in on pass rushing situations. So I think this line is more versatile because you can play MJJ standing up just like Peyton, and you can have them lining up on the same side of the ball. And it's going to give Fuller a lot of creativity with what he can do on the defense. And we haven't even discussed the linebackers yet. We'll get to that. But like with Riley can do the same thing at 6'5", 240. You can play him in that same situation where he can put his hand in the dirt because he did a little bit of that at Auburn, but he can also step back and cover. So the versatility with this defense is going to be very, very intriguing to watch just with the front seven.
Without a doubt. There's a little bit less known frontline talent than last year, which is fair. The main thing is just highlighting with a giant arrow is Marvin Jones Jr. If Marvin Jones Jr. can get anywhere close or match to what Jared Verse did in his first year, then boom, hands down, it's improvement. We've taken another step, but I agree with you. When you look at the depth of the D-line, yeah, it's hands down nowhere near. This staff has shown over 4 years going to the 5th year now that they are some of the best evaluators and developers of defensive line in the entire nation. They have shown over and over and over and over again, and they've only missed on a handful, not even a handful, 2 or 3 guys that didn't come in and really work out and be all conference level, going to get a spot in the NFL type guys. The guys that they've gotten that have played for them, that they have developed, have been good. So now you bring in 4 defensive linemen and Durajaye Siono Lillohea, Marvin Jones Jr., and Grady Kelly. And you say it's like a disaster, and you only hit on 50% to the level that you've hit up to this point. We are going to be Gucci. That is plenty. Somebody said we're 6 deep at tackle. We are. We've got 2 guys that we pretty much know are good. They're going to be all conference level type players. But there's 4 guys behind them that if those guys get down, that you know are going to come in and give you competent play with an upside that is all conference, with an upside to maybe be better. And if you can keep them all rotating, keep them all fresh, and use them in the ideal situations, as we've seen Odell and Papuchis do over the years, we're going to be good. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm super high on them. You mentioned linebackers, DJ Lundy. We haven't heard anything, not a bunch out of him in camp, just because, again, like I mentioned with some of the other veterans on the team, there's just not a ton of reason to put him out there in harm's way, and the more physical parts of practice, and when all the majority of the reps are taken. So he's been limited somewhat. I don't know if he's dinged up or if it's just purely that. He is kind of the heart and soul of the linebacker room. He's the guy that's been here for 3-4 years at Florida State. He's going to be the locked-in and trench starter. But the very next guy, the guy that you have heard a ton of and is getting a lot of play, is Cam Riley. He is the guy that when we were recruiting him on this channel, I probably covered him more than any other transfer. I really wanted him. You guys have heard me bitch and cry and moan for as long as I've had a platform about kind of just the variation of body types in the linebacker room, or the lack thereof, during Randy Shannon's tenure. It's all 6'1", 200, and it's cool. That's his thing, especially in this 4-2. That's not like the future. It's happening in the NFL. But in the college game, in my opinion, you need to bring talent and you need variations. Like we're hyping up the wide receiver room, or not the wide receiver room. Sure, you can apply it there, but I meant to say the running back room, how you have a running back for every offense, like Jen said, for every formation, you've got a running back for every situation. Well, you need to do that in linebackers too, in my opinion. You need to have a linebacker that can move down and put his hand in the dirt every once in a while to surprise some people like Deshawn did. And what you have in Cam Riley is Pat Payton that plays linebacker. It's unreal. He's way more fluid, less physical than a Pat Payton. Isn't as good as you might think he is putting his hand in the dirt or rushing the passer, but there's plenty of room there, and he's got that frame. And yeah, I'm sure they're gonna pull it out. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch what he can do. But if anything else, send him to rush the passer. I know what he's going to be able to do, like Patrick Payton. He's going to be able to put his hands up and jump and bat those balls down. So I mean, maybe he can't. Maybe he doesn't have that coordination, but I'm pretty sure he can. And the same thing with Sean Murphy. He's not quite as tall, but I believe he's about 6'3", 240. So yeah, I really love him. He has a ton of upside. I think he could end up being an absolute star at Florida State at linebacker. By 25 or 26, he could be a guy that you're talking about as like a second-round draft pick heading into the year. He could be a beast. But at this point, why wasn't he starting at Bama if he's so good? The bullshit. That's the narrative out there. But everything I've heard, everybody I've talked to, everything I've watched, every clip I've seen, he seems to be doing good out there. And then after that, Juice Cryer. He's been the superstar. He's been the other guy beside Cam Riley that has been really getting hyped up. You have to be careful when coaches do this, because when there's a bad group, it's like, okay, that's the ones they're going to build up. They're not going to beat them down if they're down. And some people may say that's what's going on here. I don't believe so. I just really think Juice Cryer is going to be special. I don't know if it's this year that he starts and makes his impact, but he shows flashes of brilliance, so much so that you can see it just in the limited practice clips we've gotten. And no matter who you talked about that's been inside the private portions of practice and seen him, he is that dude. So there's 4 guys at linebacker I'm super comfortable with. As crazy as it seems losing the 2 seniors and everything else, I'm happier at linebacker than I've ever been. And I'll say the same thing about safety here in a minute, but I'm going to read Encyclopedia Super Chat. $5. We really appreciate you, brother. He said,
Thank you.
I think this is how much it costs to go to a Miami, Florida game. $5. So now I can go to a game. That shit's hilarious, man. I'm sorry it took me so long to read that. But yeah, man, pumped about linebacker. I can't even remember if y'all have gotten a chance to talk linebacker, but go ahead. And if not, we can move on to safety and DB.
Go ahead, Jen, if you got
Sorry,
something
bro.
to add.
Um, well, I mean, what I would say about linebacker is, yes, we've heard all the crying and the whining and the wetting their underpants over the linebackers. But to me, I think Sean Murphy and Cam Riley are going to be so surprising. And of course, DJ Lundy, we needed him back. He's a starter. But guys, it's high school recruiting and portal recruiting is the same. I don't know why
Mm,
anybody doesn't understand this. I understand maybe you need hand holding. Maybe you need to know that a body is the same as a body. One is younger, one is older, one has been under the lights, one hasn't. That's the difference. And so when you
mhm.
bring in good linebackers out of the portal, to me, that's better than high school recruits. I don't I don't know how else to say it.
Mm. Well, I'll speak on the linebackers. I just think, it's still a work in progress, as we know. We know DJ knows the system, so, and he has slimmed down, so I think he's gonna have a big year this year. And we only played two. To quote 36, we only played two. We got a thumper and we got a guy that's cut in
Mhm.
coverage. I think where a lot of us kind of get a little frustrated with the whether it's a portal or a high school kid or prospect, is you looking for that particular linebacker that can do both. He can thump downhill and he can cover. But the unique thing I will say about this with the linebackers that we didn't touch on, and to quote 3-6 one more time, was Riley in particular. His height will become a problem for those windows in over the middle and
Mhm.
in the seams, along with Sean Murphy, and then you got more athleticism at the linebacker position. We know D'Lo, very athletic linebacker. Bethune was much more your thumper guy with Lundy, but I think we may be a lot faster at that position in coverage and more versatile, definitely, as you said, George, because we haven't even mentioned players like Nicholson also to add along with Cryer.
Yep. I forgot
Um,
about Nicholson.
you
Should have
only
brought him
play
up.
two, and I think we got at least five we can
Yep.
rotate here that can contribute, and then we're not even discussing Omar Graham's development and continuing to watch him as a prospect and continuing to grow. So I mean that gives you six right there that can rotate, and you're only playing two, but it gives us the versatility that we need. And what I said about Fuller, he has a lot, and he looked happy today in practice. He has a lot to work with. This is the most he's had to work with on defense, including Jermaine Fisk and Verse. This is the most he's had to work with as the overall personnel in every room since he's been at FSU. And I think he's going to maximize everything that he knows. And we got enough guys that know the scheme. That's the important part. We don't have to have two guys on the field. This is their first year in the scheme. You got somebody at each level that knows the scheme, from the line to the linebackers to the DBs. That means you can get people lined up where they need to be, and we can execute. So we can just focus on playing and flowing to the ball and executing the defense instead of where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do here? So when you less thinking and more reactionary play is what I think we'll get out of this linebacker core.
Facts on top of facts on top of facts. I couldn't agree more. And before I move on to safety, I just want to touch on this because, again, the 2023 team is becoming the core of this Florida State team this year and especially next year. Next year, they'll be the guys that are going to the draft or making their case for their senior years and going to the draft. And we've talked about 22, even 21 and 20. The large
Mhm.
majority of those guys have transferred out. What's left is legitimate NFL type prospects that will start or be in our 2D. The rest of them are gone from 20 to 22. They're just gone. Wasn't a hateful thing. They just were never going to start. Okay, you only had a few guys like that out of 2023. The
Mhm.
only guys we've lost out of the 2023 high school class are Dylan Brown Turner, lost the other two, Vandravius Jacobs and Goldie Lawrence. Now, let me
Mhm.
go down this list of high school players. There were only 9 blue chips, according to 247 and things of that nature. But
Mhm.
again, the evaluation of these players, COVID and everything, has just got back to normal now.
Mhm.
2023 is still in a bit of the effects. And just, we've got the best evaluators in the game on our staff. They bring
Mhm.
great kids and players, and they develop them. Hakeem Williams, we all know he's on the track. Lucas Simmons, love him on a great track. Conrad Hussey is battling it out with Devontae Brown to start at safety. Absolute beast. Blake Nicholson, you just got through talking about him. KJ Sampson, you heard the glowing review I gave of him. KJ Kirkland, another name that's about to come up, a beast at safety. Lamont Green Jr., we call him Boots, getting better and better. Really think he's got a bright future. Brock Glenn, been the best quarterback thus far up until today. DJU has kind of turned the corner, looking like he's going to take over this thing, and we fully expect it. But Brock Glenn really just taking strides and strides, getting that experience the last couple of weeks of the year, and then having a full offseason. Really love Brock to compete for that starting spot next year. Sam Singleton Jr., the running back, just getting better and better and better. Edwin Joseph has been a beast covering that slot, battling out there, covering outside, even in the spring game, taking care of redshirt senior guys like Darion Williamson in a giant spot. All these things, like really, really, just adding muscle. You can see him growing as a young man where he's going to be a great player. Jabril Brawls, a guy who was a 3-star out of high school, but is a blue chip body and an athlete, really starting to look like a D1 cornerback. He's getting better and better. Andre Otto has been a steal at tackle. He was a 3-star, no hype. People laughed when we signed him. Who we signed him against? He had an NA next to his name. Beast. Quindarius Jones, a guy who was a beast at corner. A guy that would have started in 2021 or 22. He came off the street and been a starting corner. He would have started over, in my opinion, Amarian Cooper that year in 21, and the next guy's the next guy. He's a beast. We're just studs, and I swear we're going to get to DBUs, but I want to go through this. Jaden Jones, still getting his legs and getting better and better. But yeah, that's the whole class, guys. They hit on the whole class. They hit at a level out of high school. Like, I'm telling you, go look at other people's classes. It's almost unheard of. Now, you pretty much double that up. We brought in 9 blue chips, plus what we did in the transfer portal. The 24 class, which are the true freshmen in here now, the Elijah Moores, those guys, 16 blue chips out of high school, plus the 10 transfers that we've talked about between Sione Lilahaya, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk safety. Conrad Hussey, I just brought him up. He was my pick to be the best freshman player last year. I nailed that shit. He came out and killed it on the defensive side as a freshman. He was a beast. I really loved him. He's got the most highest upside of a safety as I can remember. I said it a bunch of times since Derwin James and Marcus Brutus were back there. You have sophomore slumps. We'll see what happens. Devontae Brown, it's like, oh man, that's got to piss him off that he came in. They brought the perfect person to come in and compete with him. But should he beat him out and take over that spot, he's one of those safeties, one of these old, just playmaking type safeties that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. He can play man coverage and do those things, but he can also get his nose in there in the ball. He reminds me a little bit of LaMarcus Joyner, maybe, if he was blessed with a couple more inches. Although LaMarcus Joyner's arms were it didn't matter. He had the arms of a 6'4" man, so that's why he's such a beast all those years. But yeah, across from him is Shaheem Brown, a guy that, last year when everybody was freaking out, all the Chicken Littles were on safety last year. I mean, it was bad. The talk around, what are we going to do with safety? What are we going to do with safety? All we got to Akeem Dent and Shaheem Brown, and after that, it's over. We don't have nothing. Well, we saw what Conrad Hussey was. They had a bit of a point with Kevin Knowles. That was tough. That was a link in the chain. Everybody hates Kevin Knowles because he was forced to play out of position to help us. But he didn't have to play a ton, thank God. And we had Hussey and Kirkland to play some of those snaps. But lo and behold, Akeem Dent had a bit of help, but Shaheem Brown was good. He was really good. He stood up to all the expectations I put out in front of him. I was really excited on a young guy going into his second and third year, and sure enough, he pretty much by the end of the year could have got drafted. If he was eligible, or he was eligible, he could have left, he could have got drafted. But as I've said before, he's pretty much a solid, middle round NFL player that came back to play football for you for another year. So I'm pumped. The talent is just through the roof and out the back door at safety. So go ahead and I guess we can start with Jen on this one. And then I believe that's the last one. I forgot tight ends. We'll hit that, and then we'll get in the conference realignment.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know how I feel about all of them. I do think Shaheem Brown, I think he's going to be a surprise this year. I do. I think he's going to be very steady. I think he's going to be very good. Look, I don't know. I think for me, it's what Ashlyn Barker. What do you guys feel about this one? Because to me, that one's kind of a wild card. Let's talk about it. I think he's going to be really good, but I don't want to get like over my skis.
Well, for me, I'm once again quoting, I'm unapologetically gonna be as Ashland Barker supporter. That's 706. That's from my
Okay.
city. So he comes from my city. So I'm gonna support him. We've not had a great track record with sending our kids to Tally. They don't usually don't pan out all that well or have some other situations. So he's one that I'm interested in watching his development in the safety room. And simply because of this, if you look at once again, it Pat Surtain has a type of player that he likes, and we normally point out the corners, but his safeties, Hussey 6 foot, Shaheem is 6'2", Conrad 6'3", Devontae 6'2". You see him, you get what I'm saying? It goes back to those windows, closing those windows up. But the safety room as a whole, I think it's as healthy as it's been since just before we got Jamie. Um, I like Devontae's addition. I think he kind of works like I think his name was McClellan that we had. He gives you a veteran in the room, a mature guy that work along with Shaheem and with the young guys like Kirkland who has been there, but he's still a young guy. And in the DB room as a whole, with so many young guys, we have enough vets in there that's really gonna it's a team run program, so player led, so I think that's really going to help with the growth and maturity and development of some of the younger players. But in particular, I like Hussey. I think his versatility is going to show a lot this year along with Earl Little. But going with Eugene Barker, um my thing about Barker is I think he'd be versatile. I think he's versatile enough to probably play some linebacker in certain packages when it comes to multiple wide receivers, your dimes,
Yeah.
nickel packages. I like his versatility. He's athletic. He did start a little bit early in the season last year, so there's something that they saw, and something that they see. He's a very good athlete, but he's still raw in at technique and development. So it's going to be really intriguing to see him, in particular because I my already stated reasons.
Yeah, no, just like at the linebacker room, it's just a
Hmm.
completely different level. Instead of
Hmm.
having guys at safety that are going to have to come off the bench, like Kevin Knowles, that you're going, oh shit,
Hmm.
oh shit, oh shit. No, the guys that are backups, you're like, you want to see, oh, God, well, shit, okay.
Okay.
Now we get to see what Hussey looks like. Now we get to see what Barker looks like. Like we're excited to see these guys. I can't wait to see Kirkland go out there and lay the wood.
Hmm.
It's not ideal for them to get thrust into a situation, but no, I think it's levels and levels. You mentioned McClellan.
Hmm.
Yeah, Devontae Brown and Ashlyn Barker to fill that role 10
Hmm.
times more talent and high upside and all that stuff. Like, and that's just what happens. You're filling all these roles with, like, there's a lot of people who are placeholders and worst case scenarios. There's none of those left on the roster. Every single player on this roster you could see get developed to a top line guy. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Corners, like, there's not much to say. I can't say much new. We've talked a ton about it. Azaria Thomas and Fintrell Cypress, according to just everybody that's been out there, they're freaks. They're freaks.
Hmm.
Probably the best corner tandem in the entire nation. We've said for a long time we think this is going to be a top 5 DB unit in the nation, but shit, I'm gonna cut it 3. It's gonna be top 3. They're gonna have a chance to be the best DB unit in the nation. We'll just go DBs. We'll cover corners and slot it all at one time.
Yeah.
You add Earl Little Jr. into the equation.
Hmm.
Um, I mentioned the young guy, Edwin Joseph. Ricky
Hmm.
Knight has come in, Jen's guy, Ricky Knight, and he's freaking got like 4 turnovers
I'm with you.
already. He's
Yeah.
given up like 0 completions. So
Hmm.
just
He's going to be
it's
so good. Like, I don't even have the words for this. I just don't.
Oh yeah, he's going to be damn good. He's going to be really good. That defensive back room, we're homers here. Whatever. This is the Florida State podcast, but we try to be honest with you when shit pisses us
Hmm.
off. When we think there's a place that you can worry about, it ain't DB. We are nasty. We have got one of the nastiest DB rooms in the entire nation.
Hmm.
We had the evaluation, all that things, getting diamonds in the rough, and even then, the one recruiting spot that we never stopped recruiting at a high level was DB. You're still getting in your borderline 5 stars in Azaria Thomas and things of that nature. They've developed them And now you've got Surtain just bringing in absolute freaks on top of freaks on top of freaks, be it out of the portal or out of high school. And, Deshawn alluded to it. It's freaking 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", all the way through that thing, 200 pounds. All guys that can play a little bit of man or can play zone, can play safety, can play pretty much any position, but they find the perfect and the right spot for them. So yeah, Kevin Knowles, we've kind of trashed him a little bit. I think he's going to surprise people. I think he's having a damn good year, and I'm happy to have him back at the slot. I think he's going to surprise a shitload of people. And again, Cypress, I won't even address the hate. We've addressed it that he's got. He's just a stud. He's a stud. But God, we're already over an hour. We haven't even talked the Big 10 stuff. Guys, DBs, before we move on, I want to give you all a chance. I know Jim wants to brag on Ricky Knight, and I know you got to take.
I'll throw one name out there before you go, Jen. We didn't mention, you mentioned a little bit, Duke. Duke's back in the rotation too. So, we got a lot of clay to work with here. Proven clay, even those questionable or unproven bits of clay, it just is an embarrassment of riches. The DB room is comparable to the running back room. We're good. I mean, if you're coming off the bench with Quandarius Jones, Amarion Cooper, even Kevin Knowles, as much as we bashed, and I've said it before in a previous episode, after seeing Jerry and Jones' development, I won't question that. There's no need, because we were, a lot of us as fan base were on his head. And get him out of there, all of those things. We know everything that was said. And then to watch him become a draft pick and pretty much one of the best slot corners in the nation, according to PFF and on the field play. He was very, very good last year.
Fact on top of facts.
Well, I mean, y'all know I'm going to sit here and promote my guy, Ricky Knight. I think he's going to be so good. He's going to be such a surprise. Please go buy his merch in his store, because I have a shirt in there. Amazing. So make sure you go do that. I'm also, look, like you said, Duke is back. Like, we have so much there. Cypress, I am here for it. That kid is so athletic. He can make plays. Let's discuss seriously, we have an embarrassment of riches right now. It's an embarrassment of riches. Let's hope they all stay and don't transfer mid-year, because where are all these studs going to get playing time? I don't know, but I'm ready to see it. Like, I can't wait to see all of them go out there and do their thing. And especially my guy, Ricky Knight. So,
he's a freak.
I'd love to be right.
Yeah.
I really
You can afford the red shirt track star too. So, that's another name we didn't mention, and Kai Bates also. So, along with Lester. So,
all of those young guys.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. All those young guys. As I said earlier about the wide receivers, it's similar with the DBs, getting a lot of reps, getting a lot of those matchups. It's funny watching Lester coming out to practice a couple of days ago. You see it, the new transfers and the freshmen, they're Norvell guys, and they're in there. They're doing the work. They're not lazy. They're in shape. But it's a different level of commitment. It's a different level of run around. You see Mike Norvell run around everywhere. He expects it from the players. And it's always funny every year seeing the first couple of weeks of camp, the stiff legs and the I'm sore as hell before they get warmed up in the morning. But yeah, Lester, Kai Bates, all great things coming back. Almost buried the lead. Didn't talk about them just because we're so deep at DB. There's no pressure on those guys to play early, but hey, they definitely could get out there. And I'm sure it's going to be one of those deals. Florida State's back to where it's going to be a lot of fun when we can get the starters out there, and all of a sudden you can see the young guys go up there and finish it up and start to make a name for themselves. And that'll be better and better every year as the recruiting just continues to rocket to a new level and a new level and a new level. And the biggest not talked about part is the exits. Florida State, Mike Norvell, Derek Ray, they have fine-tuned and mastered the guys that leave, however they do it, whether it's their idea or it's just the freedom of the players and they read the writing on the wall. The guys who aren't working out, that aren't going to see the 2D, whatever the case may be, they go to the best place for them. They go out, whatever it is, 15, 20 guys. It's been a year or more every year. They get out and they replace them with better players and they just every time when you're skilled at something, every time you do it, that's your advantage. That's why if you've got the #1 recruiting class year after year, you're the most talented team in the country. The more plays you play, the better. The less plays, the better chance you get upset. So every time they can do that, every time they have a portal period and some guys leave and they replace them with somebody, it's with better and better and better and better players. Same thing goes for high school recruiting as guys graduate and go to the NFL. After this year, you're going to see Cheyenne Brown, Joshua Farmer, all these guys go to the NFL, and they're going to be draft picks, but they're going to be 3-stars, low 3-stars that were taken early in the time period, being great evaluations and things. Guys that replace them, 4 and 5-star freaks, top 100 guys, top 150 guys. Tight end, you mentioned it. Landon Thomas is coming back. He's a freak. He's a beast. The guy's a true freshman. He should have been a top 3 tight end, if nothing, #1 tight end. So really excited to see what he does this year. You've got the guy Amari Williams, who was a 5-star in the 2025 class, rescheduled or whatever, reclassified to the 24 class. He ends up being a 4-star DN/tight end. And as much as we need DNs, people have talked shit about defensive end recruiting and would have loved to have put him there. He's such a beast at tight end. It's looking like he may never get over to the defensive side. They've talked about him playing both sides of the ball. I know he's done a little bit stuff on both sides, but most of the excitement is about him working out at tight end. And everybody that I've talked to that's seen him is like, yeah, it's different. I don't even know if Nick O'Leary was the type of athlete that he is. I love Nick O'Leary. He was a beast, but a little bit shorter arms, things of that nature. More of like, you're not going to play tackle because your arms are so short, so you're going to be a tight end and do things of that nature. Landon, this guy, we're talking about a dude who was a 5-star DN, Amari Williams, that like he has that span, he has all those things. So going to be a lot of fun. And then Kyle Morlock. Kyle Morlock. Holy shit. He's one of the guys that got me off the ground, back in the beginning of, or the end of 2022 when I was covering the portal and just doing my Sherlock Holmes thing, trying to figure out who was going where, put my reputation on the stake, on him, Casey Roddick, a couple other players. He's a Knoll, whatever, pretty good ahead of time. They ended up signing him. I talked big. I really thought he had the opportunity to be just a stud, even though he's coming from shorter. You watch that tape, you gotta understand it don't translate, but we've seen it. We've seen what his staff has done over and over again. Supposedly Florida, he wasn't a take for them. A couple different schools who interviewed him didn't see the picture, didn't see the writing on the wall. I think he's going to show some folks this year. He's going to come out and be a beast. It took him a little while, a little gangly, big old tall white boy, but man, he seems like he's got his shit under control. And you can see the work going in. Even just like how kempt his beard and things are, he just looks more like a professional this year. I got a feeling he's going to ball the F out. We're almost up to 100 people in the room. We appreciate everybody joining us. We're about to talk about my ideas and the tea leaves that I've seen through conference realignment, and specifically Florida State University to the Big 10 conference. But you guys, Deshawn, you can go first this time. Anything else? You can touch tight end or whatever, but just anything else on camp that you've heard, any rumors, anything you've seen, yada yada, out of camp or the team before we go into Big 10.
With the camp part, I'll just touch on the tight ends real quick. Yeah, Morlock kind of gives me some vibes of what's the name, Ryan Izzo a little bit, but a lot bigger contributor in that manner. 6'6"
Very
legit.
good.
He's really cranked it up from what we've been hearing in camp. And there were some questions about his blocking. Even Jackson West was mentioned too with his blocking, and also he's actually a very good athlete in his own right. He's finally developing and coming into his own. So it's something to watch out for outside of Amari and of course Landon. I saw something in the chat just to bring up, and it's not shifting the conversation, but they were asking if there was any information on why Clarity posted what he posted on Twitter, why he delayed his recruitment. To answer that, I don't have any answers right now. It's just puzzling, we'll see. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I've got a theory. It's not breaking news. It's what I've been telling you guys all along on it. This didn't come from him. This is just an opinion, just a theory, reading the tea leaves. But the kid, as far as I knew, Florida State really high on his list. Kind of maybe a family team growing up. If he got that offer early on, maybe he's already a no. Could have been one of those type of things, but the offer came late. It was one of those things. He had a lot of people stumping for him, myself included, for him to get that offer. Really like to see Pensacola kids come to Florida State. And this is one of those kids that's so athletic that he really just, he's good enough, even though he's a little shorter. He's not exactly the stereotype of what Surtain wants. I would really like to see him. So with that August 3rd deadline and as tight as he's been with Ole Miss, as hard as Ole Miss has been pushing and really showing him that they want him to be a part of their program and a game changer moving forward, it's made it tough. I just truly do not know how hard Surtain is pushing for this guy. I was begging and asking questions. Well, why doesn't he have an offer yet? You think he's going to get his offer? Well, will he get reps at the next camp? That's the questions I was asking when he didn't have the offer. So now, just because he finally got an offer, that doesn't mean I don't know how hard Surtain's pursuing him. I don't know what they're telling him, and we all know they give the hard sell. So we'll see. I think the push from August 3rd is maybe let's see if a Florida State or maybe there's another team out there. As we get closer, Washington maybe likes me a little bit more. Maybe they missed on a guy. Let's see who wants me the most when it's all said and done, which is risky, We'll see. We'll see if he waits till after high school football season, which it's coming up real soon. So you don't have much time if he's just delaying it a little bit of time, or if he just waits until signing day. If it goes all the way to signing day and he's somebody that Florida State wants, I'd really like to know what's going on. That would be a dream come true for a kid like him to commit to a Florida State, and again, not to put words in his mouth. It's just things I've heard and my opinion on it. So we'll see.
So the stuff of him messing around Colorado isn't really true because, that new fan bro.
Drop it.
Yeah. No, I was just saying those fan bros, those new football fans that are now podcasting on the University of Colorado. Is that what they're called? The University of Colorado. I don't really know. Nobody knows because they haven't been relevant since like 91. No, I just look, if the kid wants to be at Florida State, I hope that's where he ends up. But something is telling me this is an Ole Miss thing for me. And he might be trying to see if that lane train is going down to the University of Florida. But that could just be me.
Yeah, definitely another way to look at it, because you don't want to go there for 1 year and now Lane's in Florida. Like, hold on, I was there. Yeah, I could have been in Florida State. So yeah, definitely could. And that makes sense. It goes pretty much the same thing I said. Just that's definitely another facet of it. She's absolutely right there. We love you guys. Thank you guys for staying so long. It's already an hour and 18 minutes. We'll see how long this conversation goes. It's hopefully not too long. We all saw the flurry, guys. We saw it. Brett McMurphy, Dennis Schlong from Arizona, or Sheen, whatever, Afro Sheen, whatever the fuck his name is. Who else?
The Swam guy, whatever his name, Greg
Ross
Swam.
Dellinger,
Yeah.
Greg Swain.
Yeah, whatever his name
all
is.
These guys for 2 weeks. Florida State to the Big 12. Florida State to the Big 12. Not conspiracy theories. Oh, this could happen and maybe it would. No. Florida State expected to the Big 12 for 2 weeks. All the same people that told me I'm fucking crazy because FSU doesn't have an invite to the Big 10 and you can only have
nobody has invites anywhere, guys.
Don't mean
they
anything,
don't.
And all these things you told me. It's those same people doing the opposite. So all of a sudden it was game for 2 weeks to say that stuff. It was to the Big 12. Well, calmer heads have prevailed since Dellinger has circled around and said, oh, that was just more rampant hypothetical speculation. I didn't mean it. Okay. Well, Jason Schneer, he fell back off the face of the earth back to Arizona bloggerdom, whatever that is. Whatever.
They trying to make payroll, darling.
He's back there. Who else? Brett McMurphy. He's just doing his thing. He's the opportunist. He's not with ESPN anymore, which means he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to carry any agendas, but he's with action. So he's got to make waves. He's got to say some shit. So he was smart. He saw Jason Schnee's tweet. He made waves. He pushed that narrative. FSU to the Big 12. And anybody that wanted to talk shit about FSU and would take his call, he took their call and he put some anonymous quotes about how we're belligerent, bad partners, all these fucking things. Okay. Well, again, cooler heads have prevailed, and now some things are starting to come out. We told you guys that we had a board of trustees meeting on the 22nd, I believe it was. That has came and since passed. They talked a lot of really smart stuff about a lot of smart things happening to do with building hospitals in Panama City and Pensacola and the research facility, $500 million of research there, AAU there. They talked about all that stuff. Then the provost comes out and says, yes, indeed, Florida State is planning on being AAU certified within 3 years. Boom, mic drop. All these guys saying, you know, a lot of these, I'm not going to put a name on it because I don't remember who said what, but a lot of people have said Florida State, they're miles and miles away from AAU. They're not actually trying. They've got to do this. They don't they don't have that. Completely debunked. It's false. It's happening. Florida State is going for the AAU. According to the provost, they're on a 3-year track. That could be bullshit. It could take a little bit longer, but we will see. The latest tea leaf to drop. The latest thing we found out today, maybe it was yesterday. Anyways, Florida State will indeed be hosting a women's lacrosse team. Not a club team like hockey, but a legitimate fucking mic. A legitimate lacrosse team. But y'all start talking about this and what it means, as this is supposed to happen by 2026, and exactly who else in the country has ladies lacrosse. Because I don't think there's many teams in the Big 12. I know there's not in the SEC. But I know there's some in a particular other conference. And again, sorry about the mic, guys. I'll be right back.
Outside of the ACC, the Big 10 has a big collection. Congratulations to Coach Tisdale, Sarah Tisdale. She has a good track record and a working relationship with A.D. Alford, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan. She's known as a program builder, 12 years in. She's produced 3 conference championships at her time. Also numerous all conference players, all conference defensive players. So she's the right hire for this situation and building and getting ready. And then like you said, George, the tea leaves are there. We're not actually kicking this thing off to 26, which is the irony. We'd be out and we'd be playing lacrosse in the Big 10. So it works out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deshawn is the man. He went and did the research.
At least he
the
did.
girl's name sounds like a actress. I can't, Sarah Tisdale or something like that. What's her name again, Deshawn?
Sarah Tisdale. Yes,
that's her
her
actual
name.
Somebody in the chat, let me know. Is that not a famous singer or something named Sarah Tisdale or an actress?
It's Audrey Tisdale, and she was an
That's the younger
actress.
sister. I'm telling you. Anyway, we'll have to move on. I won't.
It's from High School Musical. She's from High School Musical. Yes.
I told you. See, I was right. Ashley Tisdale. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So Sarah Tisdale.
I said Audrey.
Yeah. Okay. So there it is. The mystery solved. Ashley, Sarah, same difference. But long story short, I'm sure FSU will dominate. But the significance, more than anything, Big 10 is one of these kind of, it's like a country club. You know, you got to have the right polo on, got to have the right thing. It's just like, it's part of being part of the community. It's the same thing as with the AAU thing and wanting you to be good in academics and research and things of these natures. You know, there's, I believe, 10 or 11 teams in the Big 10 with women's lacrosse, and they are Big 10 teams. It's Ohio State. It's the Big 10 core teams that do it. The guys, the blue bloods with their nose up in the air. And with Florida State to start this big time. We've already got a club hockey team. I'm pretty sure they're working on possibly getting scholarships for that too. That would be another thing that matches. You know, they already sending kids to Big 10 leadership meetings, all the things, the trips to Chicago. But yeah, this is a little bit bigger than I think most people would realize. They would look at it and scoff. When you look at Big 12, I think they have 3 teams that have programs whatsoever. And those are Arizona State, and one other. They're planning on getting to 6 teams just to accommodate so those schools can keep women's lacrosse. You know, they're doing it, but the people that would try to pretend that would mean anything that FSU would grab women's lacrosse to like make the Big 12 happier, for the Big 12 to be a bigger fit. That's nuts. That's nuts. And maybe I'm reading something into this, but you keep adding it up. You keep adding it up. And the dates of when all these things take place. We're going to have AAU by 26 or 27. We're going to be playing lacrosse by 26 or 27. It's like, come on, guys. Come on. But anyways, yeah, no fear there. It's Florida State to the Big 10. It's happening sooner than later. August 15th is the date that they would have had to have committed to be in there by 2025. That part, as we've said, unfortunately, was going to be a long shot. Like, we would love it. It would be amazing. There was a point in time when it looked like there was a pretty damn good possibility. But the way these court battles have gone, there's really no news to update there. But the court battles are pretty much, locked up in traction, be it one of them being in appeals court, another one waiting for the next part. The next court date for discovery and things of that nature. They've gotten some redacted copies of the agreements out there and things like that. But yeah, it's just kind of in a holding pattern. And there's nothing's going to happen by August 15th. So it is what it is. If any conspiracy theories come out in the next couple of weeks, hold your breath. Don't get your hopes up. It would be amazing. Something could happen. Whatever. 7 teams could bolt and the ACC could crumble. But the way everything's looking like, it's looking like the path that we described, the path that they've been on with the AAU and everything else is going to unfold. And by 2026, FSU will be playing with the big boys. There's just we can go through all the reasons. I don't really want to do that again. But I will open up the phone line to give you all a chance if there's any questions.
Well, do I get any comments on this new sporting event at Florida State?
Yeah, I was trying to finish it. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were done. Look, women's lacrosse at Florida State. Woo. I guess you're going to get shown on the ACC network on Saturday mornings. Nobody cares about that sport. Nobody watches it. It's fine. Good luck to you ladies who are going to play it and be on the field, whatever. This is honestly, if this is what you're trying to use to get into the Big 10, I don't think it's going to work. But I honestly think this makes me feel like you're trying to make the ACC network happen. Why are we doing this?
In my opinion, it's about opportunity. And if we're talking about Title IX, which is women's sports, there's nothing wrong with it.
That away.
It's nothing wrong with it though, Jen. I mean, I would think you being a woman that you would be a little bit more sensitive to the situation in sport and the opportunity for other women to come and play the sport on campus. I mean, if we're looking at it and we're painting a bigger picture, I mean, I
do care about that, but when you're also allowing men to play the sport, it makes women playing it absolutely irrelevant. So it doesn't matter. So I don't really that is absolutely insane. As a woman, look, I want women to succeed in sports. That has nothing to do with anything. What I'm saying is women's lacrosse is not watched. It's not promoted. It's not something that anybody cares about. And if they want to start caring, cool. But if you allow men to play it, it doesn't freaking matter at this point. And I don't care what their feeling is that day. I don't care if they sprinkled on some glitter and said, hey, I'm a woman, I get to play this. No. The fact that you allow them to do that makes that sport irrelevant. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll add one more thing. I can remember 25 years ago, they said the same shit about softball. And now it's one of the most popular sports in the game.
Did they allow men to play the softball though?
Well, it's still
they're
baseball.
allowing men to play lacrosse.
It's still baseball.
Yeah, that's a totally different conversation. Making fun of lacrosse for being a nerdy game is a different conversation than men playing in the sport. I don't think the ACC will allow that. I don't think FSU would go along with that. So that's why I'm a little confused.
They're actually supposed to with the new Title IX. They're supposed to with the new Title IX. So again,
I don't think the argument should be about where men are playing the sport. The argument in general is just talking about lacrosse and I mean, we're talking about a story in which we just hired a new coach for a sport in which the university is starting, and it just ironically it's a sport in which opens the door for interest. Okay, this conference that we're interested in going in, and we're talking that we're going to, it just more tea leaves. That's all we were
Yeah,
talking
no,
about.
I mean, I get that, but I mean, I think lacrosse and women's lacrosse, especially, has been the ACC tea leaves too. So I don't know that you can sit there and, I mean, to me, that's the only thing the ACC shows on Saturdays.
Hold on. You think that the FSU is trying to suck up to the ACC?
No,
That's
but what I'm saying is you can read those tea leaves any way you want to. You could say they're doing that because they want to get on the ACC network, that they are the only people that actually anybody watches it.
I
Or
think
you
it's
could
more
say they're
about
trying to get in the Big
opportunity.
10.
I think it's more about opportunity, and it's just opportunity to create more opportunities for athletes, period. And I'm not putting a gender on it. Athletes to have an opportunity to play. Um, Florida in itself and the surrounding area is a region with a lot of talent, and they play lacrosse in Florida. They play lacrosse in Georgia. So let's get it's why not open up a door for another sport? For an
yeah.
opportunity for athletes in that area to not have to go to North Carolina, not have to go to Penn State, Maryland, or Boston College to play. They can stay in the state and play.
Yeah, it's not taking food out of anybody's mouth. It's just another thing to have. But
Yeah.
yeah, we could have that whole conversation about the politics of Title IX and everything. Maybe we'll do that one day. But yeah, as far as Florida State going to the Big 12, they have lacrosse, and that's the point that I was making there. And yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna open the phone line is open. If there's any questions about lacrosse or the roster, conference realignment, anything we didn't touch. Now is the time to do that before we get out of here. We're already at an hour and a half. This feels like almost like an in-season episode with a little spice on the end of it here. So yeah, now's the time. We'll go for another 5 or so minutes unless something else comes up and we keep rolling with it. Here we are, baby, having fun. As I catch up on the chat. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the scholarships is another big part of it. And another reason why maybe Florida State doesn't add some of these sports, because like, what's the point of having a sport if you can only give out 3 scholarships? And it's a team, a giant. I don't know how many scholarships lacrosse used to get, and it's the whole team and all this stuff. How can you field something high quality, and how can you do something worth doing if it's all this out of pocket? The kids got to pay for it. So I have a sneaking suspicion the amount of scholarships allocated for all the different sports means Florida State obviously more open to those type of things. So absolutely could see them adding other sports. But yeah, just another tea leaf and just another opinion right here on the Renegade Rundown.
Okay.
All righty, I guess we will call it a day. We love you guys. This is the Renegade Rundown. We will see you guys. What is today? Tuesday. We will see you Friday. Right here. You can catch me tomorrow on the Voice of College Football live with James and Chris. Hopefully they can make it over. That's at 6 Eastern. We will see you then. Go Notes.
Hey, we had